Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win again.
Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nixon coming back with another bullseye of a video here today, a vocal tutorial. We're gonna go over the future vocal chain that I went ahead and created for y'all. First thing out the gate, I just want to say thank you to all my subscribers, everybody who been just eating up the templates, who've been commenting on the videos, who've been showing love and support for my music and everything on Instagram, hitting me up. I appreciate you, my YouTube family. We're gonna make sure that we keep giving you quality around here. And if you got any more suggestions for any different type of vocal tutorials or studio rack chains you want to get, let me know down below. I'm more than happy to get to it and give that to y'all. So let's go over this chain, how you could get it sounding like Future, right? We're gonna go over a lot of things today. So the very first thing that I want to talk about, right, is being a student of the game when it comes to music. So what I do is when I jump into my auto-tune, right, I used to always struggle with auto-tune, but then I saw a picture of like musicians in the studio, right, and how they was playing the notes on the piano, the songwriter and the artist, they was going over the notes and everything, and like, you know, just tuning the voice before, you know, you make the song. And I feel like that's lost right now in the music game, right? So that's the way that I discovered to get a perfect auto-tune sound every single time in my songs, is calibrating my voice to the actual beat. So I want to show you guys that the very first thing today. So I got this free app right here on my piano. I got this free app on my phone right now, which is called Pianos and Scales. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to find the scale of the beat, right? So for this beat, it was E minor, right? So I said, okay, cool. So what you do is you download a free piano app, then you go to like the piano, right? And you set your scale. So for this one, I had E minor, right? And the very first thing that I do every single song with the auto-tune is I always like start playing the notes. So I start playing the notes and I calibrate my voice to the auto-tune. So that's the way to do it. You know, you could even say the lyrics while you're, you know, trying to just get your voice in the scale of the song, right? Because that's going to enable you to have the auto-tune working, right? Because you're actually in tune. When you rapping out of the scale, I'm telling you, it's never going to sound good. And that's why a lot of people struggle with auto-tune, because they try to, at the last minute, throw on auto-tune and do all that. But you got to understand that it's the scale of the music, and you got to correlate your voice, like the tone of your voice and your melodies, to the notes in the music, right? So that's the first thing I wanted to go over. A very useful tip. You should try it out. It's going to help your auto-tune game out a lot. So the very first thing that we did today is I did a little bit of research on what, you know, Future's real vocal chain. And I saw that Future, his engineer, Seth Firkins, he always used to, RIP Seth Firkins, he's not here with us no more, unfortunately, Future's engineer. What he always used to use is a Neve 1073 on Future's vocal. So, I mean, what I did is I made my own Neve 1073 using the Waves plugins. So that's an important mindset that you got to have when you're making music. You might not have all the same materials that the other person had, but sometimes that's not what matters. Sometimes you just got to figure out how to get the sound, how to get it sounding like that. So, you know, some people will be like,
oh, well, if I don't have the UAD Neve 1073 or that specific plugin, well, I guess I can't make it sound like what it's supposed to sound like.
But that's not true. I'm trying to tell you that at the end of the day, it's coming down to you, right? Like, you got to just get the sound that you hear in your head, right? So I made my own Neve 1073 using these Waves plugins. So that should always be your mindset. It doesn't matter about the equipment or the plugins that you're using. You got to just have a sound in your head and do whatever you can with the plugins to get what you hear in your head. That should always be your goal, which you can do too, right? It helped me catch my vibe. It already gave it that rich, creamy sound, and I caught my vibe right away with this vocal tutorial, this vocal template right here. So the theme of this vocal template is really like not doing too much, right? So what I did is I just wrote off a little bit of lows, because, you know, Future has a deep voice. And that's the thing with all of my vocal templates, if you guys want to grab them, is that my templates are actually made around how the artist really sounds like my EQ moves and compression. It's just really made around like how the artist sounds like, you feel me? Like, Future has a deep voice, so I made my voice a little bit deeper, and I made these moves accordingly to that, you feel me? Wrote off a little bit of lows, then we did a low shelf, because Future He has a deep voice, and you can tell too when he was rapping in the song, he really came up close to the microphone, like you can tell. And proximity effect is important too, because when you listen to the song, you could tell that it's not no background vocals or anything like that. It's just the upfront vocal. So sometimes, you know, as a rapper, if you know you're not gonna do no background vocals or ad libs, you might just want to come up a little bit closer to the microphone so the vocals in your face, and it's just filling up the space of the music. You hear me? I feel like this is my best vocal chain right here because it's very open. It's not too EQ'd, not too compressed. It's very open. This probably is my best vocal chain because it could apply to like a bunch of different songs. Sometimes in a song you want to over compress. Maybe if it's a dense hip hop beat and there's a lot of stuff going on, sometimes you do want to over compress it. Hip hop is known for that over compressed vocals, but you got to draw the line to where you start feeling like your vocal is losing punch and dynamics. So you got to make sure you always, you know, check yourself, guys, when you're doing compression. You feel me? The next thing that I have right here is a multi-band compressor. Usually with the multi-band compressor, most of the energy is in the high end, the top, right? Like this one right here, right? And I kind of use my multi-band compressor as like a de-esser. So as you see, my very first de-esser isn't doing too much, and my last de-esser is not really doing anything at all, to be honest. I use the multi-band compressor as a, not necessarily a de-esser, but as a way to control the high end because most of the energy is there. So because it's a situation like that, you looking at more than likely a fast attack and a fast release. Now remember that each song is different, right? And sometimes the tempo and the flow that the artist is rapping with, you know, like they might have to do a fast attack and fast release. But sometimes if it's a swag song, like that, it might need to have a slower attacks and release depending on the bands, right? So I always like set the bands first. I solo out the bands, bypass them. I play around with it a little bit and I get it. And after that point, I leave my ranges pretty much consistent because I don't want too much variable compression. And just look at, I'm gonna play the parts real quick, and you're gonna see how mostly this multi-band compressor was just taming like the high end, right?
Put on the road, she was holy. Me and my rollie get it in, Japanese trees. Big top, made back fins, by the twins. We got them locked in, boxed in, glocked in. Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win it.
So you see how kind of like I did it in a way where the T's and the S's are just like the multi-band starts twitching a little bit once the sibilant starts coming through. So there's many ways to use a multi-band compressor. It all just depends on what you want from it. So it's a lot of things you could get from a multi-band compressor, but you got to understand what is your main goal. Whenever you're mixing, you should have it in your mind. It's kind of like driving a car when you're mixing. You just don't hop in a car and start driving anywhere. I hope you're not doing that right now with the way this gas prices is set up. So just think about it like when you get in a car. When you get in a car and you start driving, you already know where you're gonna go, right? You already have an idea, and that's what mixing is kind of like. It's kind of like driving a car. Like as soon as you start mixing, you gotta understand, okay, where am I gonna take this and what turns and, you know, what moves am I gonna make? Because sometimes a vocal doesn't need too much like this one. Sometimes when you in your car, you only wanna go down the street. Sometimes you might want to go up the road. It's, you know, it's different ways that you can take it. So you should always be focused on what's your end goal with the vocal, right? There's conversations going on in mixing, like in a song. You got to see it like a conversation. Okay, the beat first quarter is talking to you. The beat is telling you, okay, I've got this beat bass, I've got this type of snare. So you got to listen to it, right? When you have a conversation with somebody, you listen to them, then you give a response. That's what mixing is like. You let the music talk to you first, and then your mixing moves, which is your response, is based upon what you hear. Then the vocal is also having another conversation, kind of telling you what it needs, you know, all of that stuff too. Here, I didn't do too much EQ or anything like that. I just used it for the color. So let's listen to like the effect that it had.
Niggas craving for bodies ready to spit again. I get on my tears by my ears, big I blocked in. Made an M to a 10 and I posted on the 4th again. Only time I sell I had the show, bitch I'm European. Top 10, that's what that.
Okay guys, so always remember that. Mixing is like driving a car. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you take a left turn on this street or you take a right turn on this street. It doesn't matter what plugins you really use. It just matters how you get to the end destination. So this was helping me get the sound I was hearing in my head. And we just did a little bit of roll off, a little bit, but nothing drastic, you know. And the next thing that we have here is a CLA 76. So with the 76, what I was doing is I didn't even use it to compress. I only used it to make it brighter, right? Because sometimes you don't have to use a boosting EQ. I see some people, they say, oh yeah, I want to make my vocal brighter, so they boost all of this. That's one way of doing it. It's multiple ways to get to your destination, which is the final mix, right? But sometimes you got to understand that mixing is a trade-off. If you boost the high frequencies, you're changing the frequency balance of the vocal, right? And sometimes that's gonna make it drive harder into the certain plugins. It might give you a sound you don't even want. So I use the CLA 76 in a way that I always use it, because I never use boosting EQ like that on my songs. What I do is I just open up a CLA 76. If I want something to sound brighter, I go over here and I put it on Bluey. I'm letting the saturation make it brighter and not using no EQ, right? Because the EQ might change the tone, it might change other stuff. So this is how I did it. And I played around with the knee too, right? So you have to understand too that with different ratios comes different knees. And I'm gonna post a little picture so you can see what the knees look like. But pretty much the knees is like the way the sound is hitting the compressor. So I see this not as a ratio, I see this more as a tone, right? Think about it. It's multiple ways that you can say the same word, but it might all mean different things, right? You could say hello, or you could say hello. Like, think about it. That's what tone is, and that's how you should see like ratios and compressors. You know, they're just like tone machines or color boxes or whatever you want it to be, right? It's not limited to it, but that's just the alternative way you can use this plugin. You don't always have to compress. So let's look at that.
Niggas craving for bodies ready to spit again. I get on my 10 by my ears, big I blocked in. Made that M to a 10 and I posted on the 4th again. All the time I sell her at the show, bitch I'm European. Top 10, that's what that the melody is costing. No sleep, came from out the streets.
So that's what I'm trying to show y'all. Sometimes you don't gotta boost on an EQ. Sometimes you could just use a compressor like the CLA 76 and just put it on Bluey and no compression. You feel me? And bam, that's a better alternative to boosting up a vocal or anything. Specifically with a vocal, I just don't like how a digital recording sounds, like with the background noise. So sometimes if you start boosting up all of this on a EQ, the high frequencies, you're going to get all that background noise. And okay, so you guys already know about my parallel tuning trick, right? I use two types of auto tunes and I blend in the other one, and you can see like this is the settings I landed on, and the tracking is a little bit different. So with the tracking, it's the detection for the auto tune circuit. So this auto tune is way more aggressive than the one I had on the actual lead vocal, and I blended those in. So that's a little trick for y'all. You know, if you want a really aggressive auto-tune sound, but not too much, you could do it like that. And the next thing I did is, this is going back to what I was talking about, studying the game. I noticed that engineers in the back of the day, what they used to do is they used to have the lyrics. They used to be looking at the lyrics while they're mixing a song. And when I heard Future say, big top made back Benz, bottom by the twin, that just put me in a vibe where I was like, yo, I need a compressor that's going to be punchy, that's going to bring that part out. So that's another lost part of engineering too, that you guys, you know, I'm telling you should get back into it. Like, study the game, study your favorite songs, your favorite engineers, and like add some of the stuff that they used to do, add it to your game. And that's how you're going to make yourself a cut above the rest, right? So I use the API 2500 on parallel, and I'm not even doing too much compression either.
We got them locked in, boxed in, blocked in. Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win again. I know niggas craving for bodies ready to spit again. I get on my 10 by my ears, big I blocked in. Made that M to a 10 and I posted all the...
So you just gotta remember too, parallel compression is not all about smashing the compressor. Sometimes what parallel compression is about is maybe contrast. It's about contrast, maybe two different types. Maybe one is a fat compressor on your lead vocal, but the other one is like a VCA. So parallel compression isn't all about, you know, just smashing the compressor. No, it's all about contrast. That's what it's really about. Contrasting two different types of compressors just a little effect that I use, but it has a little bit of modulation, so it's making the vocal wavy.
We got them locked in, boxed in, glocked in. Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win again. I know niggas craving for bodies, ready to spit again. I get on my...
So as y'all can see right there, it just made the vocal have a little bit more movement, which is very important because, you know, it's giving more energy than what's really there, right? So a meta flanger is a good way, a little chorus effect or a phaser is a good way to smoothen things out and add movement to a vocal. Is when you're making music, sometimes you want to look for those cues. And when I heard the beat, the drum stop, I took that as an opportunity to create more drama. So don't ever try to force it in the mix, but look for an opportunity to create suspense, drama. I used a delay throw, right? So I'm gonna show you how to do it real quick. What I did is you go over here to touch/latch mode, and then you go under the automation part, right? And you pick like which send or whatever one you want to do, part you want to automate. And then you click play, and then you just throw the fader, you know. So that's what I did. I made a quick throw. But then also what I did is I had a sidechain filter to keep it in control. So let's look at that real fast. I might go into a more depth next video, but I don't want this video to be too long. So let's just look at it real quick.
We got them locked in, boxed in, glocked in. Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win again. I know niggas Japanese trees. Top made back fins by the body twin. We got them locked in, boxed in, glocked in. Alligator skin for my sins.
So, you know, you always want to make sure you create a dramatic moment, but like a sidechain filter, like right here, is keeping myself in check. And that's what you should always do too, you know. Look for ways you can keep yourself in check. And never try to overdo it. Never have too much reverb or too much delay. Always keep the vocal in focus. Always try to get the best vocal take, right? So I just want to say thanks a lot for you guys giving me all this support. Let me know if you want to see any more different types of content down below. I know this video was a little bit long, but I just wanted to drop so much jewels, and this is my favorite one right here, doing the future one. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot for being a part of my family.
We got them locked in, boxed in, glocked in. Alligator skin for my sins, I'm about to win again. I know niggas craving for bodies, ready to spit again. I get on my team by my ears, big I blocked in. Made that M to a 10 and I'm posted on the walls again. Only time I sell her at the show, bitch I'm European. Top 10.